Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive. Right off the bat, before we get into today's topic, I want to strongly encourage you to subscribe to Rugby Obsession.
Yeah, if you want to stay completely up to date with all things rugby, hitting that subscribe button is it's the absolute best way to make sure you never miss out on any of this.
Exactly. So today we have a very specific mission for you. We are going straight to the very top of the rugby world to explore what actually makes a rugby guru.
Right. And we aren't just looking at this abstractly, are we?
No, not at all. We are examining one legendary coach entirely through the eyes of his biggest, most famous rival. We're pulling from this truly fascinating article recently published by Planet Rugby, where the 66-year-old current head coach of Japan, Eddie Jones, just heaps an enormous amount of praise onto Springboks boss Rassie Erasmus.
Seeing two absolute titans of the sport discussed in this manner is, it's rare. You just don't see it often.
You really don't.
What makes this source material so captivating is the sheer rugby intelligence radiating from both of these men. I mean, we are talking about two of the most brilliant minds the sport has ever produced, openly celebrating the immense craft required to win at the highest level.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to fully appreciate the weight of Eddie Jones calling Rassie Erasmus a guru, we first need to establish their deeply intertwined history.
Which goes back a long way.
Right. How did their paths initially cross in a way that shaped this whole dynamic?
Well, we have to rewind all the way back to 2007. Eddie Jones stepped into a really pivotal role, taking over as the technical advisor for the Springboks.
Helping them win the World Cup in France that year.
Exactly. And the man he replaced in that specific tactical infrastructure was none other than Rassie Erasmus.
Because Erasmus had just departed to become the director of rugby for the Stormers.
Yeah. And when Jones arrived to take over, he literally inherited Erasmus's old work computer.
I think that is such a fascinating detail. Stepping into the tactical nerve center of a team that is about to win a World Cup, and the very first thing you do is open up the digital files of the guy who was sitting in that chair right before you.
Imagine the intimacy of that. You were looking at the completely unvarnished thought process of a peer.
Yeah.
You see how they categorize players, how they break down opposition tendencies. It creates this unique foundational respect right from the jump.
And their careers just keep tangling together after that. Ironically, a few years later, Jones eventually gets appointed as the head coach of the Stormers.
The very same Cape Town outfit Erasmus had gone to.
Yes. But Jones is only in the job for just over a week.
Literally a week.
Before England comes calling, pays a compensation fee, and poaches him. So they keep orbiting the same roles, but they also clash on the biggest stages. 2015, Jones is coaching Japan, and he pulls off that monumental shock victory over the Springboks at the World Cup.
The miracle of Brighton. A result that completely shattered the perceived hierarchy of international rugby.
But then Erasmus gets the ultimate revenge, right? 2019 World Cup final. Erasmus leads the Boks to completely neutralize and beat Jones's England to take the trophy.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this shared history is exactly why Jones's current praise carries so much institutional weight. This isn't just a coach commenting on another coach.
No, it's a 15-year tactical chess match.
Exactly. They know each other's playbooks inside out. It's the ultimate form of peer review from a coach who has felt the full force of Erasmus's planning on the biggest stage imaginable.
Which brings us back to that 2007 computer handoff. Jones brings up a very specific memory from that time in the Planet Rugby article. He reflects on sifting through those files and says, quote, "I've never seen such detailed information."
And that level of detail is really the skeleton key to understanding Erasmus's entire philosophy.
Even back then, Jones realized Erasmus was obsessed with the granular data.
Right, and when you examine how he backs his ideas and does his homework, his track record since 2019 is frankly astonishing.
It really is. The 2021 Lions Series victory.
Then he goes to France and wins another World Cup in 2023.
And follows that up with back-to-back rugby championship titles in 2024 and 2025.
You simply do not build a dynasty of that magnitude by just being lucky. Erasmus is deeply analytical. He is always looking for something new.
Now, before we dive into the specifics of those massive tactical swings and some of the wild maneuvers Jones specifically points out, I want to take a quick second to ask you to subscribe to Rugby Obsession.
We really want to hear directly from you on this topic.
Yes, drop your comments, your thoughts, and your opinions on Rassie Erasmus's unconventional tactics. Do you love the constant innovation? Do the bizarre set-piece calls drive you crazy?
It's such a polarizing topic.
It is, so make sure you subscribe and let us know where you stand.
The sport needs these innovations to evolve, and debating them is half the fun.
Absolutely. Here's where it gets really interesting. Eddie Jones doesn't just offer blanket praise in this article. He highlights specific innovations, including one he bluntly admits he, quote, didn't enjoy.
A highly specific line-out setup.
Right. Down the blind side. Erasmus introduced it in a test against Italy in Gregorha last year. Jones credits him for the initiative, but says he didn't enjoy it. Why would a seasoned coach like Jones hate a simple line-out variation?
Because it actively subverts the foundational rules of defense.
How so?
Well, normally, a traditional line-out gives the defending team a predictable spread of the open field to cover. By intentionally shifting the setup to the blind side, the narrowest part of the pitch Erasmus drastically shrinks the operational space.
Right, he forces massive forwards into a metaphorical phone booth.
Exactly. It causes absolute chaos in the defensive line because it breaks the opposition's muscle memory. From a coaching perspective, it is a total nightmare to prepare your team to defend against something that intentionally breaks the spatial logic of the game.
So he uses his data to find spatial anomalies that make the opposition deeply uncomfortable. But Jones also brings up another tactic, specifically against teams where South Africa is heavily favored.
Like that same match against Italy.
Yes. Jones explains that when you know you are going to win the game, Erasmus will call for a deliberate 5-meter kickoff.
Which is a staggering departure from modern rugby orthodoxy. Usually a kickoff is about pinning the opposition deep and playing for territory.
But Jones breaks down the logic perfectly. You kick it incredibly short, you willingly concede the first scrum right there on the 5-meter line, and you immediately go after them physically.
You're essentially saying, here is our massive forward pack. Let's start the physical confrontation on minute 1.
And Jones uses a brilliant historical analogy to contextualize this. He points out that this exact strategy used to happen 30 years ago in the French League.
The connection to 1990s French club rugby is so astute.
He specifically names Montpellier from 3 decades ago. Massive pack of forwards, brutally simple strategy. Kick the ball out immediately, take the first scrum, and as Jones puts it, bang, it's on, big 5, here we go.
What's fascinating here is how Erasmus acts as a historian of the game while operating at the cutting edge of analytics.
Right, taking vintage brute force tactics that most modern coaches would write off as totally outdated.
And repurposing them. He looks at his data, evaluates his team's immense physical dominance, and realizes that a 30-year-old blunt force tactic is actually the most calculated way to break a specific opponent today.
It's wild to think about the toll that takes on an opponent.
The biomechanical and psychological toll is immense. Forcing a maximum load scrum in the opening 60 seconds drains the legs of the opposing Type 5 immediately.
It sends a message.
It absolutely does. It marries old-school physical intimidation with meticulous modern preparation.
So you have a coach who has the most advanced data in the world, who can design a surgically precise blindside lineout, but who also isn't afraid to just smash you with a 1990s Montpellier scrum tactic right off the opening whistle.
Which inevitably leads to analysis paralysis for the opposing coaching staff. You have to prepare for advanced spatial manipulations and a first-minute bar brawl at the same time.
Yet, despite all of this, despite the computer files, the endless data, the vintage French tactics, Jones points to something else entirely as Erasmus's ultimate differentiator.
The real secret sauce.
Right. Despite all the clever coaching and exhaustive homework, what does Jones think is Erasmus's greatest attribute?
It's his selection skill and player management. Jones puts it incredibly bluntly. Better than anyone.
Calling someone's man management better than anyone coming from Eddie Jones is just massive.
It's the highest possible endorsement. Jones notes that while Erasmus has elite data, the way he manages the players using that data is his true genius.
And if you relate this back to your own life or career, you know that data and detailed information are basically useless if you don't know how to manage the human beings who actually have to execute the plan.
That is the true mark of a guru. The data tells Erasmus what needs to be done, but his nuanced player management is what compels 30 exhausted rugby players to fully buy into his madness under the immense pressure of a World Cup final.
He connects the cold, hard data to the beating heart of the athlete.
Exactly. You can steal a set-piece tactic, you can inherit a hard drive full of data, but you cannot easily replicate the human empathy and charisma required to manage a squad to consecutive world titles.
So what does this all mean? If we look at the full picture painted by Eddie Jones, it means Rassie Erasmus pairs unparalleled data preparation with fearless tactical initiative and world-class human management.
He represents the complete coaching package.
I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over. If Erasmus's data analysis and his tactical history are fully documented, if those files are literally living on old computers that rivals like Eddie Jones have seen, is his success proof that in the modern era of sports, the human element of player management is the only competitive advantage left that simply cannot be copy and pasted?
That is a phenomenal question. When everyone has the same numbers, the human touch is the only variable you can't duplicate.
Definitely something to keep in mind the next time you see the Springboks play. Now, before we go, one final reminder, make sure you subscribe to Rugby Obsession.
So you never miss out on these deep dives. We love exploring these tactical chess matches with you.
Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive, and we'll look forward to you listening to our next episode.